Welcome to the Worldwide Doula podcast. I'm Berry, I'm a registered nurse and birth doula, and each week I'm joined by a new guest speaker to talk about all things pregnancy, birth, babies, and parenthood. So it's time to sit back and relax as we get into some juicy topics. Welcome back to the Worldwide Doula podcast. Today I'm here with a gorgeous mama, Chloe. She lives on a rural property about 3 hours inland from the Sunshine Coast with her partner and her gorgeous little boy, Banjo. On top of being a mama, she's also studying to become a registered nurse, which is not an easy feat. Welcome to the podcast, Chloe. It's so lovely to have you here with me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Berry. It was such a nice surprise when you reached out and asked for me to be on the podcast because I also love talking all things birth. So thanks for having me.
I'm super keen to hear your story. Today, Chloe is going to be telling us all the juicy details of her pregnancy and birth with Banjo. Do you want to start by telling us about your conception journey with Banjo and were there any particular challenges or anything that you had when conceiving?
So I was diagnosed in 2017 with endometriosis, just mild, nothing too severe. But it's kind of always been in the back of my mind, just something to think about in terms of my biological clock when wanting to have a baby and things like that. And I had been with my partner since I was 14. So I guess we jumped the gun a little bit and just thought we'll give trying for a baby a go. I, at the time, was getting a lot of mid-cycle bleeding, which was quite abnormal. And so I had all of that checked out and it came back being an endometrial polyp. So that was something I just had to be mindful of when trying for a baby. I did get a lot of acupuncture. So I was working at an acupuncture clinic at the time. Funnily enough, they specialised in fertility. So they were a complementary medicine to a lot of IVF clinics and things like that. So I learnt a lot there, and that's kind of how I got onto acupuncture, being a way to help me conceive. In the end, I think we tried for probably 5 months until I fell pregnant, which is not too bad at all. But I think naively I did expect to fall pregnant within the first month or so, just because I was quite young and I thought it shouldn't be too hard, surely. My partner's quite young too, fit and healthy. But yeah.
I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that with me. We actually used to go to school together. A bit of background. Me and Chloe used to go to school together. So I feel like we know each other, but we didn't know each other on that level.
Well, at school, I wouldn't have realised. I would have just had heavy periods, and then it wasn't until after school that I kind of figured all of that stuff out.
It's such a big problem popping up nowadays, PCOS and endometriosis. And I find it so fascinating, but also very sad that how come, 50 years ago when our parents were conceiving babies, there was no such thing as endometriosis, or maybe we just didn't realize that was a thing. Yeah. And there wasn't really that much.
Yeah, it's definitely worth having a conversation about, because I think the exact same. It's a well-known fact that fertility rates are declining and things like that. So whether endometriosis is a part of that or not. I mean, I'm only, as I said, only mild. So there's women with quite severe endo, and it takes a toll on their life. I've been quite lucky, so not been too bad.
It's really good that you didn't actually take that long to fall pregnant. I'm surprised as well. I've just recently come off the pill a few months ago to prepare my body to fall pregnant in the next couple of years. There's so many hormonal changes that your body goes through when you come off the pill. So it kind of sends you all wacky. But it's funny that you say that you thought that you were going to get pregnant in the first month, because I swear we don't learn about this kind of stuff in school. You learn sex ed, okay, you have sex and then you fall pregnant and you can possibly get an STI along the way somewhere. That's what you learn. But even coming off the pill now, I feel like I'm going to get pregnant right now, straight away.
Honestly, I think that is just what you learn through school, because it's such fear-based learning where they're like, if you don't wear a condom, you're going to get pregnant, and things like that. I mean, some women probably have had that experience and they're like, no, do not take the chance. But for me, I guess we just did the pull-out method, and that was 10 years. So
yeah, it's all about timing as well. If you have sex and the timing matches up, you ovulate at the right time and bam,
Yeah.
it happens
Yeah.
like that. So it's all about timing as well, and
Yeah.
being aware of like what your cycle's doing and stuff. Talking of contraception,
Yeah.
were you on contraception before you started trying?
So no, I wasn't on contraception. It's quite funny. I've never really been on contraception, to be honest. We kind of just do the pull-out method, I guess you could say.
The good
Yeah,
old pull-out
like,
method.
such lovely language. But I had tried the pill in the past and the Implanon, so like the bar. I had a Mirena put in after I had a laparoscopy, which was the surgery just to find out that you had endo. My body honestly seemed to reject it. So the Mirena, I had to schedule an emergency appointment with the gynecologist who took it out because she just said that my cervix was literally rejecting it. So that never worked. And then with the Implanon, I was actually working in the territory at the time and there was no bathroom and my periods were super heavy. So I just was like, all right, I'm sick of dealing with the bleeding because it kept going on probably for 3 months. So
yeah, I was on the Implanon as well and I had that 3-month bleed. Like it's not pleasant at all. Like
no.
It's not great just bleeding constantly for 3 months and not knowing when it's going to stop.
Yeah. Oh, I'm quite an impatient person, so I probably was just also never really fully gave things a go. So
what happened when you first found out that you were pregnant?
So at the time, we were living on the Sunshine Coast. My partner was doing his carpentry trade, and I was actually studying acupuncture at the time. The moment that I found out that I was pregnant, I think it was a Sunday. And because I'd kind of done a pregnancy test the months leading up, thinking, oh, I'm probably going to be pregnant, the months prior, I just kind of assumed that this month will be no different. It'll probably be negative. So I just bought the pregnancy test just in case, and I ended up taking it just on a Sunday. My partner was like, oh, do you want me to come in? And I was like, definitely not. And then it came back with the positive result. And I guess at that moment, it's just like complete shock. It's also mixed emotions. I was a little bit nervous because I was like, wow, there's no turning back now, really. Like, hopefully everything goes okay and it's all healthy and well. But if it sticks, you can't turn back, really. And then I was also just super excited. And then I came out and showed Tobe. And I think he was in shock too and just probably full of the same emotions. But it was very, mixed emotions, shock, nervous and happiness.
When you find out that you're pregnant, it's crazy. You want it so much, or you've said to yourself you're going to plan. And then when it does happen, you're like, oh, shit, it worked. like what do we do now?
To second guess yourself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
It is definitely like that. And I think if you're a first-time mum, you can't comprehend what the journey is going to be. You can listen to all of the birth stories and things, but at the end of the day, you don't really know what's to come yet. You can't really grasp all of that. But so it is exciting though.
Yeah, everyone's like journey is different. So
you
can listen to everything that is out there, but at the end of the day, your journey is probably going to be just as different to the next person's journey. How was your pregnancy with banjo?
So I had a really, in terms of medical speaking, low risk pregnancy.
That's good.
But I was taken by surprise because I thought I would be a little bit of morning sickness and things. But no, the first trimester certainly rolled me. I was so sick. I ended up being like diagnosed with
Hyperemesis.
that thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I ended up getting that and I ended up in hospital twice, dehydrated. So that was super hard because I probably didn't stop vomiting until 20 weeks. And it was quite like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, this is really hard. It's just all day nausea. So it was really debilitating. I think I sat on the couch for like 2 weeks. I had to finish my job a little bit earlier because we were planning on moving anyway. So I had 2 weeks left at the acupuncture clinic that I was working at. And I ended up just saying, look, I can't really finish them off. They knew I was pregnant and they were more than understanding. That was really hard. But once I got past the 20 weeks, I was fine. It was enjoyable. I never had any lightning clutch pains, things like that.
20 weeks goes for ages when you're vomiting the whole time.
I
People
hope.
don't even get any sickness at all. And then some
Yeah.
people are like vomiting until almost the 3rd trimester, which is crazy. Yeah. Did you do anything to prepare for childbirth during your pregnancy, like classes or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. So I'll start at the beginning. When I was living at the Sunshine Coast, have you heard of the midwifery group practice?
Yes. MGP.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I had remained at the Sunshine Coast, I was, adamant that I really wanted to go through them. We were moving, so I thought I'm going to call up and I'll go through Toowoomba because I don't think Dalby will have one. Dalby ended up having an unofficial midwifery group practice where you were still assigned a midwife, and I was assigned a lady who was a little bit older, probably in her 60s, 70s, and she was really good. She would come out and visit me on the property, which was lovely. I wanted to do a birth class through the hospital, but it never really eventuated to anything. I don't think they actually had them at the hospital, but a lady who I was working at the acupuncture clinic with really recommended, I think it was belly to birth, which is like a hypnobirthing. And I was able to do classes externally with Toby. So
that's good.
Yeah, it was really good. And it was 6 o'clock until 9 p.m. every Wednesday for 4 weeks. It was quite intensive, super educational and informative. And yeah, we were given like affirmation cards and a workbook to go through and things like that, which came in handy. And then when I got to the end of pregnancy, like I bought a TENS machine, and I also ate dates and raspberry leaf tea, all of that stuff.
I'm curious because I did a podcast episode on essential oils. Did you try any essential oils during your pregnancy?
Yeah, I didn't. I'm curious to listen to that podcast. So I bought clary sage. Yeah.
We talk about clary sage in the episode.
You do? Okay. Yeah. What was the verdict?
I hear it so often that people try clary sage when they're trying to induce their labor naturally. And I think the verdict is just like any other essential oil. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And some people find that something works better than something else, like peppermint versus, I don't know, orange or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with all the essential oils, but I found that episode really, really interesting. And like even essential oils that you can use on your cervix during labor to help you dilate faster, which was really cool. Wow. I'm definitely going to be trying that.
One of the things that I was told to try was the clary sage, and you don't try it until I think it was after 37 weeks. I don't think I tried it, honestly. I definitely did the raspberry leaf tea, and I would have 3 cups a day and at least 3 dates.
There's so many things that you can try to induce your labor naturally.
Oh, yeah.
I always love hearing people's experiences with them, if they've worked or not. But like most of the time people try all of them, so they're not really sure which one worked for them.
Yes. Well, that's where I'm. I have no idea if it worked or not. Either way.
Yeah. What
gave it a go, and I guess I'll try it with my next one.
Yeah. So who was actually part of your birth team? You had the older midwife, you had your partner. Did you have anyone else?
Yeah, that was it. And also because I chose to go through the public system, what happens is you're not guaranteed to have your midwife on the night. So you're just going to get 2 midwives, whoever's on shift, and if a doctor's necessary, then you're just going to get the doctor on call. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, that sucks, because I had formed such a nice relationship with my midwife. I contemplated having my mum, but then I thought it's our first initiation into parenthood. Yeah.
I don't know, personally, if I was going to have my mum there, I wouldn't have my legs wide open. And I feel like I'm still quite private about that. But yeah. And who you invite into the birth room makes a huge difference. Like if you're already having a hospital birth, you already have to try and make it as homely as possible, make yourself as comfortable as possible so that your labor can be as smooth as possible. And then inviting someone else that, even if they're family, as long as you're not 100% comfortable with them, it won't happen. as well for
Yeah.
you. Like, for instance, my sister-in-law, she had her baby before we were about to leave Australia, and she was like, okay, I'm going to try and induce my labor. I came up from the Gold Coast because she was living in Brisbane at the time, and we went walking. We did all that stuff that you do to induce your labor naturally, and then it just didn't happen. This was like a week before we were about to leave for Indonesia. And so I was like, oh, I've got lots of packing to do. You know, I'm just an hour away. Call me if you go into labor. I was going to be like one of her support people. And I left, and then literally like 2 hours later, she was like, I'm in labor. And I was already asleep because it was like 9 o'clock at night when I left, and I was already asleep. And she birthed so fast. She had her baby in like 1 hour. So I wouldn't have been able to make it anyway. So but just going to show that sometimes, even if you feel like you're comfortable with someone, subconsciously you might not be comfortable with them. And then at the end of the day, sometimes it's better just not to happen there. Even if, you know, they're your mom or your sister or, you know, someone that you're really close with, doing whatever is true to you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And did you have a birth plan? Did you make a birth plan with your midwife at all?
Yes. So because I'd done the hypnobirthing, my goal was to try and have a natural birth. So I guess that was my birth plan at the end of the day. I also wanted a water birth. I thought, well, I actually love the water, so surely I'm going to love it during labour. And I had tried to formulate like a birth plan with my midwife, but she wasn't really too concerned, to be honest. And she was like, okay, so you want to birth naturally, like that's fine. With the water birth, we can't really guarantee that you'll have that whenever you go into labour, just because it is a public hospital. And with Dalby particularly, I'm not sure what it's like in the cities, but there's 2 birth suites in Dalby, and so only one has a bath, and if that bath's being occupied by whoever's in there first, then you don't get it. So you've got to then go into the other one. Sometimes you've just got to wait or go into a private room. I'm not sure, but that was a part of my birth plan.
Did you think about pain relief methods at all?
I did do a little bit of research. So I had done a lot of listening to Australian birth stories, and I ended up buying one of their little recordings of people talking, and I ended up getting on a lady who was talking about the hormones of labour and how sometimes medications can intervene with the hormones. And so I wasn't too keen on the medications. Having said that though, I think subconsciously I knew that if it's not going to progress or if things aren't going to go smoothly, then of course I'm going to be quite flexible and I'm going to get whatever pain relief I need. You know, whether it ends up being a C-section, I'm happy to do all of that. So I was quite flexible with my birth plan, but I just wanted to try and do it naturally first. So with that being said, I didn't want any stretch and sweeps, and I just wanted to go into labour naturally. And in my birth plan, I didn't really want to get checked as to how far I was dilated.
Yeah. It's very discouraging. I mean, it can be one or the other. And you've been working so hard, and maybe like for a few hours, you might be like, oh, I'm surely 8 centimeters, or like, I'm surely almost there. And then they check you and you're like, only 2 centimeters. Damn it.
Exactly.
It just like sends you right back to the beginning.
So well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how long does this go for?
Yeah. But and you had the TENS machine as well.
Yeah.
Did you end up using it?
Oh, I used it, like that was my saviour, I think. Yeah, I don't know where I would have been without it.
Yeah, I've heard that TENS machines are really great. Some people find them really useful, and then other people are like, try it, and then like, nope, I hate it. Like, get it off me. I think it's just a sensory thing. So tell me, what were you doing when your labor started?
Well, it was the 24th of March. I was just asleep. And by the 3rd trimester, you're going to the toilet like, 5 times a night, or at least I was. So I woke up at 3 a.m. and I thought, oh, I'm absolutely sick of going to the toilet. Like, just let me sleep. I refused to go to the toilet, which is so silly, really. And I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was like, oh, now I've got a urine infection. I did. Because because I just felt really heavy, and I think I'd got a cramp looking back, like the period cramp. So I got that, and I thought, oh, now I've got a urine infection. So I got up and went to the toilet, and I went back to bed, and I thought nothing of it, to be honest, because I was 39 weeks, and I had assumed that I would go into labour at 41 weeks. I didn't even have a hospital bag packed. So for the rest of the day, I got very mild period pains every hour. And that probably continued on, and I thought, wow, this could mean something, or it's Braxton Hicks, just some pains of the baby moving down. And so I texted my mum, and I kind of had recorded a few in my notes of the hours that I was getting them, and it was every hour. And she said, yeah, I think you're definitely going into labour. And so I texted my midwife at 12, and she said, okay, let me know how they go and if they get any closer together, and they didn't. And she said, I don't think you're in labour. And I thought, okay, I could be going into labour. I need to conserve my energy. So I did nothing all day, and I just relaxed, watched movies, and had little naps and things like that. So after lunch, I think things started to progress a little more, and they were coming closer together. I think it was like 40 minutes, and then by 5 o'clock, it was 20 minutes apart. By 8 o'clock at night, things were still the same, maybe every 10 minutes, but very mild. Like I could talk through them. I was on the phone to my nana, my auntie, and my dad, and they were saying, oh, you're definitely not in labour if you're, talking to us on the phone. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I am in labour. And by 9 o'clock, things really ramped up, and I could definitely not talk through them. I think I'd put the TENS machine on after the phone call, so at 39 o'clock. And by that stage, I was like calling out to Toby just to have him there to hold while I tried to breathe through my contractions. He had finished packing my hospital bag, so he was really good. He'd set up like a birth space. We'd had a playlist picked out. So we had that on. We dimmed all the lights. I had a salt lamp and birth ball. They were coming quite strong. And I was in the shower at the time. That really helped. So I'd just go back and forth. I'd have the TENS machine on, helping me through the contractions, and then I'd pop in the shower. I put the birth ball in the shower with me. I did stand up the whole time, and I was just swaying from side to side, and then I would just throw my arms over Toby and breathe through them. Toby was getting a little worried. He said, with the hypnobirthing course that we did, I mentioned we got a book, and that was just mainly for the partner to look out for signs of transition and when should you go to the hospital. We were probably a little bit worried just being an hour from town of the journey in. So Toby was looking at that information and thinking, I feel like you're heading into transition. And I did not think that. Obviously, I thought this is going to be such a long labour, being a first-time labour. My mum also had quite a traumatic labour and, birth experience. So I kind of just thought I'll probably have the same as her. And it was like over 20 hours. So Toby was like, Chloe, I think we better go into the hospital soon. And I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I'm happy here. And I think he might have left it a little while and then asked again. And I said, okay, we'll go in. So I jumped out of the shower and waited out at the car while he got all of the bags. And by the end, I was getting a little abusive, like, Toby, hurry up. And I think we left home at 12 a.m. And as we pulled out of our front driveway, I ended up vomiting. And I'd always kept like vomit bags in my car just because all of the vomiting with Banjo. He was like, do you want me to empty that? And I was like, no, just keep driving. Let's just get there. And on the way in, I just remember thinking one of the tools that Belly to Birth taught me was relax your jaw, relax your throat. And that's meant to like open your cervix and just breathe everything down. Mm-hmm. So I was really focusing on that. And all I wanted to do was just get through the car trip in, because it was an hour of sitting and I was enjoying labouring standing up. Toby was driving the speed limit.
Oh, was he?
At the time, I was like, we've got an hour drive. Let's get in there. I just want to get in there. And it felt like he parked so far away from the hospital. So I was a little bit dirty at him about that. But I got in there and Toby said to one of the midwives, I think she's in transition. And I guess looking back, the midwife would have thought like, okay, mate.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we'll see, hey? We'll just do a check. And by that stage, I was just like, oh, whatever. Your birth plan, or at least I was. And I felt the urge to go to the toilet. Like I wanted to wee, not do a poo, but just wee. I was like, I don't want to sit down. It was painful sitting down because you just felt even more bunched up. And so I didn't bother going to the toilet, but I ended up getting checked. I was 6 centimeters stretching to 8. She was like, wow, you've done so well. And I really held on to the 8 centimeter part because I was like, wow, far out, I've done it. Like it's just that transition now.
Just a little bit extra,
Yeah. Yeah. And I will mention, I forgot to mention this, but on the way into town, because things had really ramped up by that stage, I thought, I'm getting the epidural, So I got into town and I'd been telling Toby on the way in, I'm getting the epidural, and got in there and I was 6 to 8 and Toby was like, see, Chloe, like you've done so well, you can do this. And I looked at the midwife and I said, is it going to get worse than this? And she was like, yes, it is. And I was like, all right, I'd like the epidural. So, and I wish she never told me that, because how am I to know,
Yeah,
how am I
exactly.
to know if it gets worse or not? And because I really do feel like that if she had said, no, you're nearly there, you'll be fine, I would have probably persevered.
And
Anyways,
transition generally doesn't last that long. Like,
yeah,
I was saying this to someone the other day. People think, oh, labor is really painful, but most of the time you're actually having that rest in between, and then transition comes, and that's the most intense part. It's true.
yeah,
But it's actually the quickest part most of the time. Most of the time you're not in transition for very long, like 20
yeah,
minutes, maybe half an hour max.
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, it does get worse, but it doesn't last very long. And I think that's what she should have said to you, to be honest.
Yeah, that would have probably been helpful, because if I didn't have to go through it, like, because obviously I'd mentally prepared for the hour drive in and I got through it, like that was fine because I'd mentally prepared for it. I said, no, I'd like the epidural. When I got in there, Toby had called the hospital when we were driving in just to say that I'm coming in. Can you set up the bath if it's available? When I got in there, I jumped in the bath after being checked and absolutely hated it.
You're the
Or
second
not.
person who's told me that. My
Yeah.
best friend from my school that I went to before, St. Hilda's, she's also got a little baby boy about the same age. And in her birth story, she said that, she loves baths. And I can vouch for that. She loves baths, but she loves them like really, really hot. And nobody told her that it had to be like lukewarm or like body temperature. So yeah, she hated it too.
When I jumped in, I thought, oh, like it looks lovely. They had like a little crocodile thermometer floating around. And I jumped in and I was just like, oh, it's too shallow. Like I want to be fully, like I want my legs dangling down. I want, and I want the hose on my back, but I want good pressure. And when I got in there, like even the hospital shower was just like terrible pressure. It just did not counteract the pain that I was experiencing at all.
Yeah.
So that didn't really help me. So I got out of the bath and decided, okay, well, I'll jump in the shower and sway like I was doing. And then the pain changed. So before, the pain was generally on my back, on my lower back, and just around the front of my belly. They're just really intense period cramp feelings. And it had radiated down my legs, so probably to my knees. And I thought, oh my gosh, like if it's going to radiate, I don't think I can do this. Like, how far is the epidural? The midwife on call said that I would have to get my bloods taken and tested before the epidural was given. And the anaesthetist was somewhere else at the time, but she was probably half an hour or so away. And I thought, oh, when is she coming? I kept asking. My midwife was off duty, but she was in Toowoomba. So she was actually traveling because she didn't want to miss my birth. So I thought that was super lovely. And I was waiting for her to arrive as well. So we got into the hospital at 1 a.m. and then I'm not sure about the time period then. I had the urge to go to the toilet and I said that to Toby, and the midwife overheard and she came in and she goes, what's that now? And I was like, oh, nothing. Like, because I was waiting for the epidural, and she goes, sometimes when you need to go to the toilet, it can mean that the baby's coming. And I was like, no, the baby's not coming. Like, I just need to go to the toilet. And
Was it
so,
still a wee at this point, or was it like?
no, this was number 2. Yeah, I was holding my belly because I really wanted the epidural. I felt like I couldn't do it without it.
Mm.
And Toby was like, Chloe, don't hold your belly, like it's fine. And I was like, oh, shut up.
You don't know anything.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what this is like. And anyways, and then I thought, oh, I'll just give in once, just do one tiny push, just to relieve the feeling that I had. And as I did that, my waters broke, everything just came, and I felt Banjo's head drop. So I put my hand there to see if that's actually what it was. And sure enough, I could feel his head. And I thought, wow, this obviously means 2 things. Like, first thing is the baby is coming. And the second thing is I've run out of time to get the epidural.
Yeah, you're not going to have the epidural. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a little bit disheartened. I really thought, I'm going to tear, I'm going to have an episiotomy, and I can't have any pain relief. So I was very fearful of that. So I mentally was a bit absent-minded and having a bit of an internal dialogue with myself about, like, okay, you've just got to do this. You've got no choice. So if you're going to do it, let's get it done quick, and it's going to be painful. So my midwife was there at the time. She'd arrived. And she said, well, do you want to come out of the bathroom and up onto the bed to have your baby?
Mm-hmm.
So I waddled over to the bed, and she had the bed and climbed up.
Was it like a chair? You know how they can make it like a chair? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And I just had to lean over the top of the bed and bear down. So they said, you can start pushing. And I gave it one push, and I yelled out. I was quite vocal at that point, and I was like, is the effing head out yet? And that was after one push. So looking back, I'm sure that the midwives would have been like, you'll probably be here for another hour or so. Pushing, like, as most women are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at that stage, you're probably like, get this thing out of me. I'm ready to hold him, you know?
Yes, that's right. But I was just like, oh, like, I was, get this thing out. That was exactly right. I just wanted it to be over. I'm not sure how many pushes I gave, but it ended up being probably 20 minutes, and he was out. And then I just rolled over straight away. They placed him on me because I'd just been through the whirlwind of labour. I wasn't too present. Still in a bit of pain, like you haven't come down off the adrenaline rush that you'd just been through. Toby started crying because he was present. That was quite a moment for him. They gave me the oxytocin to birth the placenta straight away, which wasn't in my birth plan, but at the time I just thought, well, whatever, I don't care, I just want it to be done. And then it was just cloud 9 because you have your little baby, and it's just very surreal.
Did you do like delay cord clamping or like the breast crawl or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. They actually were quite supportive of that. So they did try to keep him on there for as long as they could, but the placenta itself actually stopped pulsing. So they just decided that they'll just cut it. So I'm not sure whether it actually did or not, or if that's normal. I really don't know. But I probably didn't get the full hour, which I would have liked to.
If it stops pulsating, then generally that's okay to cut the cord. And just like anything else in birth and labor, it's just a guideline. It's about 45 minutes. But it's good that you got that option. Was that in your birth plan already?
It was in my birth plan, just because I'd learned about all of the benefits of delayed cord clamping in terms of the blood being transferred over to the baby. And the breast crawl, yes, I did get that. It was such a foreign experience just because you have no idea how to handle a baby. Well, at least I didn't. You probably do, being a doula berry, but for myself, I'd not really been around many newborn babies. This was the first. So my midwife did help me a lot with achieving that, which was good.
That's good. How long did you stay in hospital after you had your baby?
So I ended up getting my bloods back, and I had elevated white blood cells. So they were a little bit concerned and decided to put me on antibiotics. Because of that, I had to remain in hospital for the weekend. So I gave birth to Banjo early Friday morning, and I think I was discharged on the Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you end up tearing or anything?
Yes, I did. So with my tear, though, it was nothing drastic, nothing to be stitched. But I did actually tear. I didn't really feel it, though, if anyone would like to know that, if that's also their fear. I didn't really feel it because it's all painful, I guess.
Yeah, exactly what I was just about to say. You're like wrapped up in this whole experience that you really don't feel it. Did you get the ring of fire?
Yeah, it wasn't like with the ring of fire. I mean, it's definitely tight. Like that is what I felt. Just like I'm assuming that that's the ring of fire, but it never burned. It was more just really tight. And I was like, how the hell is this baby going to fit out? Because I'm at capacity. I can feel it.
Yeah.
There was one point where I had to stop pushing. Banjo's head was out, but his shoulders are quite broad. So she said, stop pushing. She told me to pant like a dog while she helped his shoulders through. And I tore more so near the clitoris rather than down below.
Okay, that's interesting. So like
yeah, up the
Yeah.
top, which I thought was weird, and I just don't know how that happened.
So it was a positive experience?
An amazing experience. I ended up being able to birth my baby. After I had my baby without the epidural, I was so grateful that I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Because it's everything that I wanted, and he was healthy and happy, and I could stand up. I got wheeled to the area where I was going to sleep, and I had a shower pretty well straight away. I think it really helped my healing not having it, just being able to walk around and do that sort of stuff.
And then after Banjo arrived, what happened? Like, how did you find the postpartum time? Did you breastfeed? And
I did breastfeed. As I said, it's a little bit of a foreign phase because you're navigating being a mum for the first time, also newborn life, how to handle a baby. Toby and I always laugh because we were in hospital with Banjo, and like it would take us minutes to put on a nappy, and the doctor would come in and just whip one on, 20 seconds. It's like we're meant to be his parents. We don't know how to.
It's all part of the learning process of being a mum.
Yeah, exactly. But I had a really positive experience in terms of breastfeeding. I had no problems, really. He had a little bit of an upper lip tie, but it was nothing to deter him from feeding. I had a lot of milk. He did wake, the newborn phase every hour or two, and that continued for definitely the first 6 weeks. And then, yeah, he just didn't sleep through the night until recently. So.
Until recently, now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you've reached a new phase.
Yes, I have. But we recently weaned at 18 months. So, yeah, I think that's when he started to sleep through by that stage. Yeah. But my goal was to breastfeed for a year.
Mm-hmm. And did you just do baby-led weaning at the end? Yeah,
I did. So I don't know if you've heard of the Boob to Food book. Have you?
No.
It just helps educate mothers about transitioning from when the baby's 6 months, what we can feed them that's good for their gut microbiome and things like that. So I followed those ladies, and some of their meals, which Banjo loved, but also baby-led weaning I did follow, and I would highly recommend. It was really good.
Yeah, and every baby's different. I can't stress it enough. Every experience is different. And in history, some babies fed until they were like 4 years old. That's a marathon. For
yeah. Yeah. That is, well, that's what I thought. I tried to go back to thinking like that just to reassure me that it's normal. And yeah, but once I got to the 18 months, I'm pregnant now with my second. So
congratulations. That's so exciting. Oh my God. I was going to ask you that later, but congratulations.
No, that's right. Thank you.
How far along are you?
So I'm now 16 weeks, and I'll be 17 by the end. Yeah.
That's so exciting for you. Congratulations, Chloe.
Thank you. So that's probably why I actually weaned Banjo. I was so fatigued though, because he was quite a comfort feeder overnight, and I was more than happy with that. But then it got to a point where my boobs got sensitive and things, being pregnant again, and I just wanted him off my boob. So
that's completely understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that happens when you get pregnant. Your boobs get all sensitive and
Yeah.
What support network did you have after you gave birth to Banjo?
Well, my midwife continued coming out for weekly visits for the first 6 weeks, which was really helpful because as a first time mum, you do have a lot of questions. Is this normal? And then Toby was super helpful. My partner, he would wake up and do the nappy changes. And that continued for quite a while, help cook dinner, things like that. And then my mum and dad actually stayed with us after hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And dad installed fly screens and stuff like that, so it was super helpful in that regard. And then Toby's mum, she lived across the road from us at the time, so she'd come over and take my washing and do it. It was
so
lovely.
Nice
it was really
having
helpful.
family there.
Yeah. It was
that makes a huge difference. Wow.
Yeah, it was really helpful because I think one day I had a whole bed full of washing, and Toby's grandma and his mum came over and literally folded it.
Your own little community. Oh, that's so awesome.
Quite lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently? Or, well, I mean, now second time round.
Yeah. In terms of my birth and pregnancy, there's nothing I would have done differently. I had such a positive birth experience. I've questioned whether a home birth would be something I would do just because I really did love being at home. However, living an hour from the closest hospital, it's just safer to probably be within close proximity just in case. So I'll probably do things the same, hopefully, hoping it goes like the first birth.
It does sound like the midwife that you found was really lovely though, and she was very supportive, and you don't get that a lot. I think with the midwifery programs, the MGP program does have really supportive midwives, and it's made for that reason, that you can have that support. But the fact that it wasn't really in place yet. No,
you're right. But yeah, my midwife was supportive, and even after Banjo was born, she sewed him a little washer with his name on it. And I thought,
that's
how
so
lovely.
sweet.
She didn't have to do that.
Do you think you'll get her again, if you can?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to request to have her again. I'm kind of nervous. But to be honest, I'm 16 weeks, but for some reason I've not been assigned a midwife. I'm not sure if that's normal or not, but the doctor just said just because it's a low risk, you've had a baby before, you probably won't get assigned one until after 20 weeks.
Chloe, it's been wonderful to talk to you today. Thank you for telling me your birth story. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Derry. It's been lovely.
Yeah, it's good to reconnect.
Yeah, and I hope women who want to listen can just take what they want, leave what they want.
Yeah, I love hearing birth stories, and I always learn so much from them. I could talk forever, all day, about birth stories, but it's time to wrap this one up. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you give us a follow and rate the show. And if you know someone who you think needs to hear this episode, give it a share so that we can spread the word and educate more mamas and women worldwide. And we'll see you next Monday for another juicy episode. For more information on pregnancy, birth and parenthood, head over to my website or Instagram at blissfulbirth.co. And just a little reminder, the information contained in this podcast is here to educate and empower, and does not replace the advice of your own healthcare provider.